Welcome to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. And now here's your host, Wade T. Lightheart.
What if you could double your energy naturally without caffeine or stimulants in just 3 short months? It's not only possible, you can transform every aspect of your health if you follow the 12-week blueprint we've created for you in the Awesome Health System. The Awesome Health System is a free course where you receive a daily video lesson spanning the most cutting-edge secrets for air, water, exercise, sunshine, optimizers, mindset, and education. It's something most companies would charge hundreds of dollars for, yet you get it for free when you go to bioptimizers.com. To access your course, register to download the PDF report called 3 Phases of Bioptimization, which gets you access to the report and daily access to the first lesson in the 12-week, 84-day Awesome Health course.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Wade T. Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And today we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. It's called radical life extension. And we're going to talk about what's on the horizon in biotechnology, medicine, and technology that helps us build a bridge to the fountain of youth and ultimately live even for centuries to come. And today's guest is Marek Piotrowski, a seasoned marketing strategist and former CEO of successful ad agencies who has seamlessly transitioned his expertise from the business world to the realm of longevity promotion. With a robust background as a CMO in robotics, he's now dedicated to demystifying breakthroughs in the field of longevity, offering practical advice and protocols to empower individuals to embrace longer, healthier, and more active lives. Alongside his son, Alex, Marek initiated the Beyond Time Project, embarking on a year-long global journey to unearth the best longevity solutions, engaging with industry luminaries and creating a movie to share remarkable breakthroughs and ready-to-apply protocols. He joins us from New Zealand in the Chinese New Year, getting ready to attend a longevity conference in Singapore. Welcome to the show, Marek.
Thank you for the thorough introduction, and it's great to be on your show.
Yeah, so longevity. It's such an interesting topic because there's essentially a couple of camps in the world. One camp is, why would I want to live a long time? Because their vision of old age is decrepit, quality of life going down, potentially dependency, loss of cognition, the significant deterioration of bodily functions, pain, and an associated of physical, mental, and social constructs, not to mention the financial costs. So like, why would I want to live that long? Then there's another group that's saying, no. But like, we can make 100 the new 50. We can improve your cognition. We can make all your biomarkers better. We can maybe even alter your genes into the future. Where are you on this map, and what's got you excited about what's happening in longevity?
When my friends ask me, how long do I want to live? I always answer, at least 500 years, but I'm hoping for more. And of course, it's shocking at the first time, but the thing is, it's not going to happen overnight. Like suddenly we live to 500. We know that science is growing exponentially. So in 20 years, we're going to have so many amazing procedures, and that we can extend our lives for another 20 or 50 years. And in 50 years, we're going to extend our lives by another 100 years. And we already have so many amazing breakthroughs that are available. They still need to be tested on humans, but they are just beyond the corner. So it's not science fiction anymore. It's actually a reality coming true. So I'm one of these optimists who are looking forward to the future, not only for my long life, but also that, we will finally have conscious leadership and that everything we do, we will use for the good purposes.
That's great. I always find this interesting. For example, if you go to the Judeo-Christian West and you look to the early testaments in Genesis, you have people living hundreds of years longer. And then there is part of the, I would say, alternative historical aspects of humanity when you get into Mesopotamia and the supposed seeding of humanity by a superior race, which were essentially what was the sky gods, the Anunnaki, things like that, which was Zechariah Sitchin stuff is very interesting. And then you have another group that are saying, 120 is the ceiling. We can't get past that one, basically. And then you have all these like Hindu texts in other parts of the world that refer to people living to be hundreds of years of old. And of course, one of the more modern books was Autobiography Yogi, where Yogananda referred to a fellow by the name of Trilanga Swami who lived around 300 years. And so there's these whispers from time that perhaps in certain places at certain times, humanity actually did have the potential to live hundreds of years. And we're seeing this now in the technological field, which you're very well informed on, saying, yeah, that's possible again. And it's been met with a tremendous amount of skepticism and disdain, almost like that you're a kook. But pretty much all the inventors of the world face that. As a longevity expert, what fuels you for going against maybe counter narratives in the medical community and pressing onwards with your work?
I'm a science guy. I love science, and I believe that it will give us a lot of answers. And actually, a lot of scientists say that it's all about programming. So on one hand, it's our mental programming, like we just program ourselves to live only 80 years and not older. So we get to 80 and we just die. Even though the medical advancements would push us forward, we're still programmed to die sooner than 100. So that's one kind of programming. The other kind of programming is this epigenetic programming and our cells programming. So actually, as they say, at one point our cells decide not to divide anymore, and then they deteriorate, and then we are slowly dying. So if we only found a way to reprogram that, we could just rejuvenate ourselves all the time and just produce the stem cells and just get new cells and so on and so on. So it's actually possible. We just have to find a way how to do that. So some can maybe do it through a spiritual path and through meditation and influence their epigenetic programming, and it will it's going to give us some years for sure, but I believe that for radical life extension we need more technology, science, and it's coming. Like you mentioned, reprogramming the genes, like we already have gene therapies which are doing miracles, and we have CRISPR-9, which is cutting our genes, and then we heal people from blindness that they had from the birth. So this is magic already, and what they say is that technology is the magic that we understand. So I hope we will understand more the magic of the world.
So just cross point on that, because I remember years ago getting introduced to this concept as I was diving deep into the historical longevity possibilities. And then, the whole gene sequencing thing came out, and then they realized, well, that wasn't the answer that they thought it was. It's a start of the map, but it doesn't necessarily get you to where you want to go. And one of the points of debate, and I don't hear much about it, but it seems like you might have somewhere, is there's a lot of experts in genetics and biology that says our DNA has already been altered at some point in the past. It's pretty obvious for someone who knows gene therapy that the vitamin C aspect in the gene was somehow taken out of human organisms. Do you know about that? Do you have an opinion about that? Do you think that we evolved as a species, or we were a mixture of some maybe genetically superior beings that influence humanity? What's your opinion on that? It's kind of an offshoot way to go.
Yeah,
I thought,
it's
why
quite
not start there, since we want to go into wild
Okay.
possibilities to begin with.
Let's start crazy at first. So I haven't heard about that, but you know, the universe is vast, so everything is possible. So whether we came from animals or we were created by aliens, who knows? I believe that we're not alone in the universe, and if we can alter the genes of some other organism, so we might have as well been reprogrammed by some other civilizations. Who knows? Maybe it was 1 million years ago or 100,000 years ago. But if we are not such an evolved species, like I think we still have a way to go to evolve, from the technology side. So if we at this point can already alter the genes and reprogram ourselves, then everything is possible.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point. You're saying, regardless of the origin story, divine intervention, evolutionary biologics from whatever, or some interactive species that altered, the substrate of normal evolutionary thing to create the unique being as humans. All of those theories or ideas, which are unconfirmable at this point, still point to the same element that you're talking about. And I'm glad you got to that, which is essentially this program, the program that runs all of the biological functions in the body, I guess, would be in combination with the inputs and outputs, diet, exercise, whatever. But this is going to determine your longevity, and that's where the focus of your work is. Would that be accurate?
Yes. Like, we are big biological computers, and we can reprogram ourselves through different inputs, as you called it. We can reprogram ourselves through the lifestyle, nutrition, exercise, and so on. We are changing our DNA, like at least epigenetic expression, every day, depending on what we're doing. So this is one point. And the other point, of course, it's just physically altering our DNA through CRISPR-9 or any other, or Cas9. So, and there will be more. So
well, a good example would be what happened during the COVID pandemic, is that people voluntarily or were coerced into taking a gene therapy mechanism that was advertised as a traditional vaccine. And whatever people's politicization or view of that is one thing, but that's confirmed from the head of Pfizer, who gave a lecture, said, if you had said a couple of years ago that I was going to put out a gene therapy and everybody was going to take it, or a large portion of the population, we wouldn't. And so now that was inputted into the human at this time. So a large percentage of the population has already altered their genetic makeup using science, whether they knew it consciously or unconsciously through what's happened over the last few years. And whatever the outcomes of that, positive or negative, basically the cats, the animals are out of the barn, the horse is out of the barn. Like, gene therapy and the alteration of the human genome, or is now pervasive. It's actually more common than not, and it's only going to keep expanding. So where are you focused specifically in this whole longevity equation? Like, what do you say is the foundational aspects to longevity, and what are the variables that are currently understanding? And then we'll get into what are the variables that you think are the areas of focus. So kind of like, what's the do's and don'ts? where are we right now? What do you think is promising or dangerous? And then where do you think this whole thing is going? Since, like I said, the horse is already out of the barn.
Uh, you know, actually, I'm happy that the horse is out of the barn. Actually, mRNA, which I think Moderna vaccine was based on, it's a mechanism how to cure many diseases. Actually, they say that using mRNA will be able to have a vaccine for cancer within the next 5 years. So for me, this is amazing. And actually how the growth of AI and technology is speeding things up is also amazing. I was just listening to Ray Kurzweil not long ago, and he just said that this, I think, Moderna vaccine based on mRNA was created by AI analyzing billions of different compositions within 2 days. Like, then it had to be tested and so on. But this is amazing how fast we're going forward. But anyway, before me and my son, we started our quest for longevity around the world, I created this longevity map, which has 3 branches. And we did that to have a helicopter view on the whole field of longevity. And now as we travel, we can fill in the gaps.
Right.
So there are 3 branches. The first branch is longevity basics. The second is biohacking upgrades. And the third is radical life extension tools. So coming to the basics of longevity, these are things that, you know, our grandmothers used to tell us. So eat real food, exercise, get a wife, be social, and don't overeat, which is very important for the Japanese people. Eat 80% full, and just also believe in something. So some say religion is helping people, but it's also having a purpose. I think this is the most important thing. So these are the basics of longevity. And actually, if we want to live naturally longer, these are the basics we all have to do. Because if we don't do the basics, any biohacking trips will not help much. Actually, they say that exercise, sleep, and nutrition are that big, and biohacking upgrades may be that big at this moment. Of course, it's going to change with the rise of technology. So just we need to adjust our lifestyle. And I know it's easy to say, but on the other hand, as I'm looking at all my friends, people are just adjusted to convenience. They want everything that is convenient and easy. So instead of going for a run, they just, sit on a sofa and watch TV. And instead of preparing healthy food, they just eat whatever is on the street. And that's how they treat their body, their vessel, as a trash bin, because it's easier. And this is the vessel that we're going to live in for another at least 100 years, or I hope more than that. So these are the basics. And of course, there are a lot of don'ts. So like, don't eat trash food, don't eat sugar, which is killing us. And don't drink alcohol, maybe just, once a week, not so much, for social power, let's call it. And of course, don't smoke cigarettes, and just don't harm yourself. These are just the basics. And another thing that is part of these longevity basics is don't die from something stupid.
Right. Squirrel suiting is probably not a strategy for longevity.
Yeah. Me, myself, I love extreme sports. I love ski touring. And I know it's dangerous as the avalanches go and you can see them. Still, I optimize the risk, but I'm always saying, okay, don't die from something stupid. But this also means another thing. This also means, to get screening of your body every year, to get screening of your blood every quarter, or at least twice a year. Because all these illnesses that are mainly killing us, so like heart diseases and cancer and diabetes, they all start 20, 30 years before.
Right.
So if someone tells us, oh, his mother or father died suddenly from cancer, it's not true. Like this was growing for 20 years. So if we test ourselves regularly, we can detect it and then heal it. Like actually, as I was talking to Evelyn Bishop, one of the scientists in the longevity area, she said that I think breast cancer is 95% curable. So this is amazing. And soon it will be totally curable. But if you don't detect it early enough, you will die from something stupid.
Right. One of the strategies that myself and my business partner deploy is looking at our suboptimal genetics. So, for example, in myself, I have suboptimal genetics for cardiovascular health, suboptimal genetics for blood sugar regulation, suboptimal genetics for food satiety, and a suboptimal genetics for detoxification pathways. So, if I left to my own devices, I will eat too much, throw off my blood sugar, and die of stroke or heart disease.
Hopefully not.
Right. But knowing that information, I'm able to put myself on a calorie restrictive diet. I do a plant-based diet because there's a lot of evidence in plant-based diets, longevity around heart disease are really good. I supplement with essential fatty acids not provided easily in my plant-based diet. Keep my blood sugar regulated, and I use fiber as a way to keep satiated because of the delay that my brain has between feeling full. So these are the mechanisms, and then on a regular weight training exercise, you want to get your muscle mass up to a certain level, your bone mass up as high as possible, and then as my middle age came in, I started pushing my cardiovascular health, kind of like under Peter Attia's concepts, getting to that top 2% range. I'm actually in the top 2% range for people in their 20s, as opposed to someone who's in their 50s. So that's the exercise and lifestyle stuff, as well as the supplementation. And then from detoxification, for example, I added an ozone HOCAT machine where I sit in a couple times a week, opens up my detoxification pathways. And with all of those mechanisms, I can feel benefits for it. I do periodic fasting for a day, once a week. So I built in all these mechanics. Now but that's just essentially, like you said, the foundational stuff that grandma told us, the new stuff that's emerged just around, accessibility to meta-analysis and dietary analysis and looking how our own genes might influence those outcomes and trying to essentially play an insurance game. You're trying to minimize the risk. It's not an absolute science, but you're saying, okay, based on this, I can do this, this, and this. There's a lot of biohacking, other things that I do out of strategy, but not necessarily is valid. There's no scientific validation. I can't wait for the science to validate it at this stage. I've got to take action and I gauge this. But what about the future here? Because you mentioned something very potent. AI, artificial intelligence learning models applied to gene therapy. What things are coming for the population that they have no idea about that you're talking about with your colleagues on a daily and weekly basis?
Okay, so we will have to get back to this biohacking part because
we can go there and go to the next part after if you like.
Yeah, no. Let's go to radical life extension. This is something that excites me the most too, because it's cool. The basics can give you extra 10, 15 years of life. The biohacking upgrades another 10.
Yes.
But if you want to live for 200 or 500, then you need the next level.
Not going to do it. Exactly. Not going to do it.
Yeah. It's like even when we were having an interview with Steve Horvath, who is an inventor of Horvath clock, and he's a great guy, but very strict with his science. And we asked him about radical life extension and longevity escape velocity. Is he a believer? And he said, is it going to happen? Yes, it is going to happen because it's pure math. At one point, we will extend our lives exponentially. At this moment, with the knowledge that we have now, we can live up to 120, or some say 134. But he said, okay, with radical life extension tools, we can get more, reach out more. So it is going to be possible. And let's compare here to AI growth. If I asked you 2 years ago about AI, you would say, oh, science fiction. Sometime it's going to happen, maybe in 10 years or 20 years. Now we have ChatGPT-4, and it's doing amazing job. And suddenly we believe, oh, it's here, it's now, and it's going to change the world very soon. So
it's changing. I would argue it's already changed the world far more than the average person understands. If you just look at search algorithms and the availability of the information to them, then much of that's controlled by low-level AI programming.
Yeah, but like in terms of science and growth of science, it will change everything. So this exponential growth of AI is changing the growth of longevity too. So I hope it's going to become a reality much faster than we think. Ray Kurzweil that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, he said that in 2029, computers are going to pass the Turing tests. So,
which for those who don't know, is that they will be indistinguishable from human intelligence. Is that?
Yes, that's correct. And the capacity will be stunning. So, like he said that even our thinking, the capacity of our brains, because of connection with AI, will be multiplied by 1 million, like in 20 years or something. So imagine that. We are already much more intelligent thanks to the smartphones that we have in our hands, but soon I hope it will not be the case that AI will overtake us, but we will.
What is the percentage chance of that? What is the percentage? Because Elon Musk has, mused about this on various podcasts, and his theory is that in the worst case scenario, it's a Skynet situation in Terminator, and the best case scenario is we become, a loved or taken care of as a house cat to AI. Where do you fit on that equation? Like, what do you think?
I'm an optimist. So of course, Skynet situation, there is a probability for that. I hope a tiny one, because I love the world and I love my life. But I think that we will use AI for our advantage, and we will be just more powerful because of that. So, and it's also all about programming. So how we program AI and how we set the rules. And there is a very interesting book that I read, I think 2 years ago. It's called, A Brief History of a Perfect Future. Wow. And it's showing the future in 2050, how it's going to look like if everything we do for the good. So we have conscious leadership. And they analyze their, logistics, medicine, education, like all the branches of industries, of societies, and how well it can go forward. So now we just have to fix this tiny problem of conscious leadership and hope for the best. So I don't think it's a problem with AI, it's more a problem with us and how we use AI.
Right. So there's I would say a deep fear and divide amongst humanity about this whole concept of conscious leadership. We have the collective centralists, I would say, which are from the World Economic Forum, which kind of have their version of the future. And then we see the rise of, populism in various countries that are opposed to that. And then we have like the Homo Deus author Harari, who is kind of like a spokesperson for the World Economic Forum. And then you have, all the counter narratives to that group. And somewhere in between lies all of us, based on the information and our capacity to access the information, comprehend the information, and do a comparative analysis between, one side versus other side, which almost no one is capable of doing with built-in human biases. And humanity's propensity throughout history to have, malevolent, messianic, narcissistic megalomaniacs who have attempted to take over other countries throughout. I mean, the whole history of the world is essentially one megalomaniac going against another megalomaniac and the rise and falls of empires. Do you believe that the longevity special interest group, the people that you're working with in the longevity groups, have properly adjusted for past historical aspects of humanity and the potential malevolence of using this technology as a way for one faction of humanity to create dominance in the world?
All the scientists that I speak to and cooperate with, they believe in democratization of longevity, that is going to be for everyone. And even though at the beginning, of course, it will be for the chosen ones that have the money to spend on that, but at one point it will be for everyone, because even for these wealthy people, they will be well off if everybody live longer, because if you live longer, then you are also economically active longer. So you don't retire when you're 60, you retire when you're 200. And your capacity of work, your efficiency is only growing. And so at one point, I'm sure it will be democratized. And I strongly believe in that.
Got it. So what are some of the...
So
we kind of went into because I wanted to bring these up because most people start creating counter arguments within that without getting to the nuts and bolts of super longevity. And I wanted to just address those for all those people listening, and I'd welcome your comments and points of view on that. I've thought about it a lot, and I've got half my friends in one camp and half my friends in the other, and they're diametrically opposed. And so thank you for that.
The problem is, a lot of people, they say, oh, 100 is enough. And I think that's just because they are not happy with their lives. If you're happy, if you enjoy life, and you can imagine yourself being 100 or 200 and just looking like you're 30 or 40 and doing everything you want and just exploring the world, the culture, the people around, like, why do you want to die? So David Sinclair said not so long ago that soon death will become optional. And I strongly believe in that. If you want to die, of course, just go and die. But let us live, those who want to live for much longer, and just enjoy the world.
Right. So what are some of the things that are present right now that you feel are showing promise in regards to advancing us to super longevity?
All right. So one is very easy to understand. So this is 3D bioprinting. So today we are like a car that doesn't have spare parts. So if you don't have spare parts, even if you have the greatest mechanic, you're not going to live for long. So we have these doctors who are the mechanics, and sometimes they give us spare parts from other cars, but still it's not enough. So I think it was already in 2019 when they printed the first living heart. It was tiny, like for a rabbit, but it was functional. So I believe that in 5 years, you will need a new heart, you get a new heart. You will need a new liver, you get a new liver. You want an eye, you get an eye. Like everything you need.
5 years. You think that's a real thing in 5 years?
Yeah, I believe so. So if we got our spare parts, this gives us, tens of years of our lives extra. So I think that's amazing. And like on our quest, we haven't visited yet the labs with 3D bioprinting, but I think when we arrive in London, there is a lab that is printing living muscles on robotic arms. And they are also very advanced in nanobiotechnology. So as you see in these science fiction movies where you inject tiny robots into your bloodstream and they just repair you. Like, I still haven't talked to them. I haven't seen the lab, but I believe this is going to be a thing within the next 10 years.
But muscles on a machine essentially is a cybernetic organism as outlined in the Terminator.
Yes.
What are the military? Where's the military in regards to this? I watched the Tucker Carlson Putin interview and just out of interest. And one of the things that I thought was very interesting is he touched on this subject very, very briefly. And if you're not tuned into the topic, you wouldn't have missed it. He talks about, with gene manipulation, we're able to be superhumans and things like that. He actually tipped his hand that what is the availability from a military, because of course there's a tremendous amount of interest of the state to protect its interest and to maintain its sovereignty, whatever that state may be or wherever it may be. And so resources can be poured into it. Is there longevity military applications that's going on in regards to this that is outside of the general conversation?
I'm sure that the military is very interested in the topic, but also I believe that it will not be just super soldiers, it will be superhumans.
Correct.
Even now, when my friends go to a doctor because they need a surgery, and I tell them, just go to a doctor and say you want to be enhanced and not just repaired. And I'm sure this is going to be a fact in a couple of years. You just go to a doctor and you just come back enhanced. So you have better muscles, better vision, better hearing, better everything. So, of course, military will use it, but still, I'm not a military person, and I hope that at one point we will not need that. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that. Yeah. But anyway, I was talking about these 3D bioprinting, and that's an amazing thing.
Wow.
And at one point, I don't know, maybe in 200 years, we'll be able to print the whole body. And if you need an extra one. But I do hope that we will be just rejuvenating the vessels that we have now. So, external new bodies will not be needed. The second, technology that is already available, it's genetic therapies. And on our quest, we already met twice Liz Parrish. We met in Shanghai and we met in Ireland, and we're going to visit her in Seattle and her labs in New York. And she's a CEO of BioViva, which is a genetic therapies company. And she is testing everything on herself. And everything is out of good reasons, because at one point her son was diagnosed with severe diabetes. And she just, she met George Church, which is the father of genetics. And they became friends, and then they set up a company. And she's doing everything for her son and for other kids so that you can use genetic therapies to just heal people. And she's talking about 3 genetic therapies that she did on herself. One is PGC1 alpha, which is activating our mitochondria, which are, these tiny power plants in our cells. And that's why my 18-year-old son has much more power than me, who is 47. But actually, we can activate them. And of course, we can also activate them through exercising, but we can also activate them, permanently through a genetic therapy. Then there is this clothotherapy, which is preventing our mind from deterioration. And that's actually something that everybody is afraid about. Even if you have a great body, but at one point you go nuts and you just stop remembering things, stop remembering yourself. Nobody wants to get to this point. Mm-hmm. So I think the longevity of our brain is crucial for everything. And then there is the third therapy was prolonging our telomeres, which is one of the hallmarks of aging. And then the fourth one sarcopenia. So this is our muscles deterioration. So as you turn 30, then you lose 0.4, 0.8% of muscles every year if you don't take care of them. So actually it's like 5, even to 10% every decade. And that's how we get fragile as we grow older, and then we break our bones, and then we don't heal. So this therapy is just stopping that, and you just don't lose your muscle mass, and that's amazing. And Liz also said that it also builds up your mass. And this clothotherapy that I just mentioned, she also said that her IQ grew by 15 points.
Wow.
So, okay, these therapies now are super expensive. I think they cost like 2 million each. And if you want to do it, but in 10 years, as we will, get it tested on thousands of people, then it will be democratized, and it will cost, 200,000 and then 100,000, and it will be cheaper and cheaper, because actually, if we prevent illnesses of our mind, of our body, of our muscles, then the governments don't have to spend billions on our healthcare. So this is beneficial for everyone.
Sure.
And the best thing is that it sounds like science fiction, and it's already here.
Right.
If I told Liz, if she needs a lab rabbit, then I'm here. I want to go and just do it on myself. So that's amazing for me.
Yeah, in regards to that, I was listening to a couple people that I always think is really prudent to think through these equations. One is Thomas Sowell, the great American philosopher, and he always says there are no solutions to life; there are trade-offs. Second thing on Brett Weinstein, the evolutionary biologist around telomeres, talked about I forget what the other agent was, but if you extend the telomeres too much, it can contribute to cancer. And if they're shrunk too much, it leads to shorter lifespan, right? And so there's kind of this Goldilocks zone that you want to hit. And I'm sure these guys have probably figured it out.
We're still working on that.
Yeah, it's not completely understood, but there's some inverse relationship. It's like sufficient muscle mass is definite. It's a definite hallmark of healthy aging. However, if you look at the bodybuilding community, which in professional bodybuilding community that are using exogenous hormones, the extra muscle mass seems to have a negative effect on longevity. So there's again, what is the optimal amount retainable by your own metabolism, your own genetics, and this is where essentially AI is kind of the great calculator of the parameters that we know, and then developing large-scale model predictor models of what would be able to potentially extend, and then taking, best scientific guess at that, and then recalibrating that model moving forward. And that's essentially where I think AI comes into the equation, right? It's the ability to do mass amounts of computational analysis each year. So even if you get something wrong, could be bad for the individual, but as far as the learning model and application to humanity, that now these things start getting factored more and more in, and the error rate goes down while the success rate goes up. And this is not a linear curve. This is a hockey stick into infinity curve.
And one more thing is, first we need AI to speed up research on drug discovery or different procedures for general populations, but then we need AI to adjust everything for us individually. I'm different, you are different. We need, like, optimum is different for me and for you. I know you are, in the optimization business, but still, like, everybody is different. So we will get different dosages, like my son, me, everything. So like one of the breakthroughs that is going to come, I'm not sure whether it will be in probably 10 years or something like that. this will be biological models of people, so that we can test everything on biological models, not on real people, and just test all possible combinations. Because also with supplements, medication, procedures, sometimes if you take too many, they're just killing you. You know, when I hear about biohackers, oh, I'm taking 100 supplements, it's crazy. You have no idea what's happening then. You know,
contraindication. So, for example, in the United States, depending on what data you're sourcing, the third or fourth leading cause of death is medical error, usually through contraindications of various drugs that were happening. And I'm from the original bodybuilding community, which I think are the original biohackers, because they're coming over to evolutionary limits, which is building excessive muscle mass and lowering body fat levels to a certain cosmetic ideal, but not from a health perspective. So they've been, you know, doing all sorts of things in order to offset those two risks. But biohackers are, you know, either on performance or longevity doing the same thing. But I do believe that we're going to start seeing all sorts of accidents in the biohacking community about random shotgunning as opposed to strategic planning and understanding the potential trade-offs that unintended consequences of just, you know, shotgunning this, that, and the other thing. Is that what you're referring to?
I think that already, as you look at many biohackers, I will not point anyone particularly, but some of them look much older than they should.
Correct.
They were just overdoing everything without checking the consequences. So some of them look great, and that's, you know, the positive part, but some of them look like crap. And I don't know how people listen to them. So still, you know, the screening part and optimization part is crucial. So, and we already have a lot of science that, you know, how we can screen ourselves, not just blood biomarkers, but also other ones. And I think we still need a couple of years. And also the scientists need more data, because as I talk to them, this is their biggest problem. They don't have enough data. So like now we have a lot of wearables, and this data is also going to the scientists, and that's amazing. We got the, you know, I love CGM, so continuous glucose monitors, like that's amazing data. Actually, I think that everyone, every teenager at high school should be wearing a CGM at least for 2 weeks, just to learn more about their bodies, about their, you know, how their nutrition and exercise is influencing that. So now we have these, you know, little stickers that measure our blood sugar, but soon we will get some, you know, tiny implants that will be measuring all our vitals. And then based on that, we will be able to build a biological model of a human, and then everything will speed up exponentially.
So would you say, based on that statement, would you say that you would be in the camp and that Ray Kurzweil would be in, is that super longevity is essentially directly correlatable to the singularity, where the fusion of machines and mankind is inevitable in order to provide the feedback loops in order to offset these things?
Yeah, I think so. Like we need technology and AI, first for screening, then for optimization. And, you know, after that, maybe we will not need them anymore, but we need them to jumpstart everything. And, you know, like I'm a longevity advocate, and it's not just for my passion, but I also want it for myself. So of course I want it for my grandchildren, but I want it to have in my lifetime, and we need AI and technology to speed that up. And fortunately, there are places like we visited in Silico Labs in Shanghai, and there they have a lab which is AI robotic lab, and the scientists just feed the robots with data and with some tissue samples, and then the robots just go around the lab AI is analyzing everything and giving solutions that look stunning. And they, at the moment, they use it for speeding up the drug discovery. But as we talked to Evelyn Bischoff, who is also stationing in Shanghai, and she is working with people having cancer. And she said that for her, being able to get a tissue sample and go to the lab and analyze it individually for this patient, and then think about the best ways to heal them, that is just stunning. So I can imagine that labs like this in silico AI robotic lab, if they were in every research center, in every hospital, that would change everything. So I keep my fingers crossed that, you know, all the big money will invest in companies like that, just to spread it all over the world, so that it's not just for the chosen ones, but it's for everyone.
So I've got two questions in regards to that kind of branch off in this longevity model, and you can choose which one that you want to come into. One is, Elon touched on it, so I've thought about it from an esoteric level. If one is captured into or has integrated into digital technologies, and then let's say that's connected into the internet, which is directly correlated to perception of self, do you think there will eventually, one will not be able to distinguish one's personal thought patterns, whatever you want to call that? Like, is the sense of I emerging from the biology, or is it an assumption that which is more on the spiritual side of things, of ego, that consciousness is identifying into this singular point, and then as we put into, like, as an individual aspect of it, and then as the singularity blurs that line, do we lose the sense of I, or does that I expand into a universal ideal?
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip: supercharge your protein shake. Everyone knows protein shakes are a great way to sneak in extra protein, build more muscle, even replace meals and burn more fat. The problem is the highest quality protein typically absorbs at around 40%. One way to fix this and dramatically increase how quickly and effective your protein shake digests is to add 2 to 3 capsules of masszymes into your shake. One research study showed that pre-digested protein during a meal increased muscle growth significantly. To take advantage of this, just blend the open capsules into your shake, and within 15 minutes or less, the enzymes will have begun to break down the protein into amino acids. This can make your shakes at least 2 to 3 times more potent. Some people do this and sip on their shake while lifting to provide their muscles with a steady stream of amino acids during their workout. To save 10% on masszymes, use the code SHAKE10, that's SHAKE10, at masszymes.com. That's SHAKE10 at masszymes.com.
I hope we don't lose ourselves.
Right. Well, that's kind of what Elon said. Like, maybe we do, but I think people will choose human over singularity as a dominant thought. But I'm like, I'll hold back on it. I'll let you finish.
Yeah, it's like, so I hope we don't lose ourselves, and that we keep our eye. And I think it's just like an enhancement, even though it's 1,000-fold or 1,000,000-fold, it's just an enhancement. And so, yeah, I believe that we will be able to use technology to do amazing stuff that are uncomprehendable at this moment, but still we will keep it for ourselves.
So what's interesting about that, I had Nanea Reeves came over to my house last year, and she had a 3-dimensional headset, and she put it on me, and part of it was that you go into a 3-dimensional experience. One was with Ram Dass in his office where he's talking to you, and another one was kind of like I would say a psychedelic mushroom trip, and your breathing was coming out. And I remember going into the trip, and this was such a potent machine in it sensory information that was coming into my body. I can remember the sense of losing, like, there's a self-perception of, okay, I'm sitting on the seat, I'm getting this feedback loop or whatever. And then I remember feeling myself lose that awareness as this became the dominant factor in what my brain was processing, at least my conscious brain. And it almost felt there was a little anxiety as I slipped into that transition, and I felt it was almost like a death, and then miniature level, and then I experienced the reality that with the virtual reality there's this. And I came out and I asked her this question, and I said, "Well, okay, do you believe that the singularity is going to happen?" She says, "Yes." And I said, "Well, how will we know when it happens?" She says, "We won't." I thought that was an interesting quote. Now, set that aside on a radical spiritual trip, like someone taking a high dosage of 5-MeO DMT, let's say, which is the chemical that is released upon death, which is advocated in, ayahuasca ceremonies, or people are smoking DMT or taking the toad medicine or some combination of synthetic version.
It's still ahead of me.
Right. There's a dropping out of consciousness or physical reality, and there's a whole, like, you really, it's a pretty I'm not advocating or recommending it, but I have said, but I've experienced some of those things, and it's another complete deviation. Where is the longevity community? Are they implementing both sides of that to improve their awareness model around the science development? Like, is those type of conversations happening, or is it just pure raw left brain data driven science?
So at this moment, it's more about biology and just optimizing our biology so that we have the capacity to live longer. Like, our vessel has the capacity, our brain has the capacity. The things you're talking about is more in the transhumanists movement. And
right.
Of course, they are also interested in longevity, and there is a dialogue between them. But I think it's different scientists that take care of that.
So then that's going to lead to my third question. So we have, which is related to your side. And thanks for going in this place, because I don't think people have enough conversations about this. You mentioned being in China, you mentioned being in London. I gave reference to the Tucker Carlson Putin interview, which he was indicating certain breakthroughs. Already we know with certain medical technologies in the world, idea like umbilical stem cells. In some places they're available, some places they're not. They're, advancement in technology in other places.
In China, they do stem cell therapies everywhere. They are illegal, but still people are not getting punished for that. So it's pretty big business there.
Right. So, but my point to the matter is, based on where the science is today, and in some parts of the world, extreme restrictions, some restrictions, and some essentially no restrictions. Who do you think is on the bleeding edge, or is going to lead the way into the future on this longevity equation, in your opinion?
So at this moment, the biggest research center for longevity, this is California. So California and New York and Boston, like a bridge. So this is where the science goes fastest. Then the second longevity center, it's Singapore, where is Brian Kennedy, who is one of the founding fathers of longevity, and he gathered like amazing scientists from all over the world, including Andrea Meyer, who he attracted from Netherlands, and a couple of others. And they really are into the science of longevity. And what's best, they are supported by the government, which doesn't happen in other countries. So actually, as we were talking to Andrea Meyer, she said that I think like 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, she was devastated. Like, the government's administration were all against her in terms of doing the science of longevity. And then she got to Singapore, and suddenly everything started flowing. So I think that apart from attracting finances to longevity, we need to attract government so that they support it, because this is very important for the scientists to grow. So this is the second research center. And then there is, of course, China. You never know what's going on in China.
Right.
Even when they announce some great breakthroughs, you never know if it's true or false. So I know there is some research going on. Actually, as we were talking to some top scientists, they were saying it's still at the beginning. But I think also in China, everything is compartmentalized, and they never know what's going on in another part of the country. So,
right.
And they have much more freedom in testing on anything they want. So
Right.
that's probably speeding up the research. But still, this is California that is leading the way. And in Europe, it's growing, but it's more growing into the wellness area, longevity clinics. So in using everything that we already have and not actually going that much into the future yet.
It's more applications as opposed to research.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's having gone to Singapore, which has a very unique government structure. You essentially have a benevolent oligarchy with a democratic underclass, almost like a different version of the UK, where you have the monarchy who kind of interacts with the democratic and government, but the relationship's a little murky there. And Singapore, of course, is a unique geographical place in that it requires the influx of so much in order to sustain its citizens. So technology is essentially the driving force of the city, and from a living standpoint, it has a lot of benefits with that unique structure. And I find that interesting that the government is so pro development of that. And I spent a lot of time in Singapore, and I've and traveled. Like I said, I got to travel around the world, so it's very unique. Which leads me to this question, I guess, which I touched on earlier. From a research standpoint, the potential benefits that would go towards any particular government on some of these breakthroughs, how that could create a dominance of one culture over the other. Are you concerned about those things, or are you? Because one of the things I find with most scientists is they tend to be more altruistically focused, and one of the biggest obstacles to scientists are often people who are politically motivated, who either want to withhold the development of that information. We could go back to all the Tesla information historically, and the government collusion between big corporations and the restriction of that because of AI. Could, like, what happens if we get free energy? What happens if we don't have a requirement for pharmaceuticals anymore? What happens? We start wiping out large segments of the population's economic systems, and of course you're going to reach lobbyist groups, government elected officials inside of that, and then you have complete autocratic or dictatorial governments who control everything right out of the get-go. Who do you think has the advantage from a geopolitical strategy point in regards to this? Because it can't really be ignored.
So far, as we travel and we meet scientists all over the world, they are all cooperating with each other. So even the same scientists are working in Singapore at a university and in Netherlands. And that's very common. Scientists even working in China, but also having premises in Switzerland or in Israel. So it's all connected. Mm-hmm. So far, I didn't see any that one country would prohibit the scientists to go to other country. As I said, I have no idea what's happening in China, but so far the rest of the world, they are cooperating quite a lot, and like this community is like a big family. They are really supporting each other. So far, so good.
So let's go into the practical because we've really gone way out there. Marek, what do you think is someone who is interested in longevity? And this might vary on an age perspective of where they are. What are the things that someone should be doing or considering if they want to be going to super longevity based on the technology that we have now?
Okay, so as I told you at the beginning, I created this longevity map some time ago before our quest. And actually, like, everyone can get that. You can go to either my webpage, longevityadvocate.com, or go to Longevity Advocate on Instagram. You just DM me with map, and it's getting to you automatically.
Beautiful.
And at first I created it for myself and for my friends, but now I'm just sharing. So if somebody asks me a question, so what should I do? So I show them the map with all these 3 branches, and I say, okay, do everything you can from this map. And just, everything you can from longevity basics, from biohacking upgrades. And you just need to survive healthy for another 20 years. And in the meantime, the scientists will discover amazing stuff that will boost us and get us another 50 years. And then we will get to this radical life extension. So you don't have to do everything, because some people say, oh, I don't want to do that. So I said, don't do this, do the rest. And sometimes also people ask me, okay, so should I use Wi-Fi or should I use Bluetooth? And I say, probably it's not super healthy, but this is that much important. And if you exercise, this is that big.
Right.
So it's better to use, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth all the time and just exercise, and the profits will be much bigger. So, okay, just get the map, look at that, and do everything you can. And then the second message, just do all the basics. Just focus on your lifestyle and make it a healthy lifestyle and not a convenient lifestyle, because I think that the convenience is killing us. Like, this is the biggest factor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why people get sick. That's why people get obese. So just, convenience is great for a little bit, but always prioritize your wellness and your health. So, don't drink, don't smoke, just exercise every day and stay healthy. And so sleep is also, of course, very important. And this is something that I also taught my son, just 7-8 hours every day, and keep it dark and keep it cool. Because a lot of people say, oh, I sleep in a bedroom and it's only 20 or 18 degrees. But then I say, okay, but you just have your head out. And say, yes. I say, no, like, you have to feel cold. So you have to sleep under the sheets and not under a blanket or a very warm duvet. And some people say, no, it's too much. But I say, okay, like, give yourself a month. Just do it step by step. I sleep under the sheets. Even now, as we came to New Zealand, and there was no accommodation left because it's the Chinese New Year, so everybody is just booked. So we had to rent a tent and go to a camping, and it's not so warm in New Zealand in the night. But still, I was laying down on a sleeping bag, but I was just covered with a sheet.
Right.
That's good for our longevity. So there are these, tiny things that we can do for our longevity, and they already give us a lot. But
so just to put on that, so you're saying your research has cemented that thermoregulation is a critical component, and we've largely compressed our natural thermoregulatory mechanisms through all of the technology around heating and cooling in the world, and like going back
convenience.
The convenience of that, or the comfort of that. Hey, I just set the dial to 72 and boom, everything's great. That sort of thing. So you're saying that's a particular mechanism that's unused by most people, is thermoregulation relative to the sleep and waking cycles.
Yeah, we need to optimize our regeneration, and we need to put down the temperature of our body in the night in order to rest better. So it's an easy hack, and everybody can do that. And the second thing, apart from doing all the basics, I tell everyone just use a CGM that I mentioned before.
Yeah.
This is this tiny sticker with a needle, and just check your sugar levels. You will change your diet and lifestyle overnight.
Right.
Just
Yeah,
by
that
seeing,
feedback of
yeah. For me, that's amazing. And um, you know, usually it takes time. When I tell my friends to do that, it takes them like half a year of talking to them so that they finally try that. But then they are amazed. You just see how, when you get your sugar spikes, and how not to have them. And then you just change the portions, you just change what you eat, the order you eat. And that's amazing. So that's why I said that every teenager should use that. And then the other thing is, yeah, do all the easiest hacks, like going to sauna and then go for a cold plunge. And this acts as a hormesis. So this is a stressing factor on our body that just makes our body regenerate. And it's usually free. You go to a swimming pool, to your gym, and you have sauna, and you just have a cold shower. So it's as easy as that. And I know it might be uncomfortable to get in the cold shower, but if it helps you live longer, then why not? And then you have red light therapy, which is very beneficial, and hyperbaric chambers, which are doing miracles. And then, of course, you have all these longevity clinics that are emerging now all over the world, in the US and in Europe. And they are doing, your full body analysis, and then optimizing many factors. So it's okay. This is expensive, unfortunately.
Yes.
I hope it will be democratized, or already in some countries like Singapore or Israel. So not many at this point. They are creating longevity departments in public hospitals, and they are just stressing the prevention part of medicine, and that's amazing. So I do hope that at one point the governments will understand that it's better to invest in longevity departments and in prevention, rather than spend billions on healing us and doing plenty of operations. It's just much more economically viable.
Right. So in regards to that, though, we have this kind of Malthusian philosophy that emerged out of the 1700s that has permeated organizations like the Club of Rome, and now has seeped into these kind of climate crisis, depopulation agenda organisms, saying that there's too many people. And then you have people on the other side like Elon Musk saying, no, we actually have a population collapse coming based on the aging populations around the world. And where does that fit into the equation from government's longevity and some of these things, which are essentially saying, well, we got to kill off or let the lowest producing members of our society die now for the projected lifespan or possibility for these people in the future? Where's the science on that, and how does that relate to longevity from your perspective?
All right. So actually, yes, most of the scientists say that soon we're going to have depopulation, and but
that's not in the news. That's not in the news, and that's not what so many young people are getting depressed about, with the environmentalism and all of this sort of stuff. So, why the contrary? Why the contrary talking points? Because most people aren't scientists.
The media, they just spread the bad news because they click better. So they don't speak about the good thing. So the good thing is that, okay, it's not a good thing, but as people move to the cities, they just have less and less babies. So at one point, there will be less and less people all around the world. Mm-hmm. As these, like now, this extreme birth rate is only in the countries that are poor and that live in the countryside. But as they move to the cities, they just have less and less babies. That's what's happening in China. Like now China has a problem because there are not enough people
population
being born as people move to the cities. So that's happening, and that's a fact. And so then the other thing is, and that's the problem in Japan or in Singapore, that people live longer, but they are fragile. So they are aging gracefully, but they are no more economically active. And that's the problem for the governments.
Right.
So what the governments do, and that's what they do in Japan, they cooperate with big companies so that the companies have to take care of health of their employees. So for instance, we all know that being obese is not good for your longevity. You just get more sick and you just die much faster. So it's not about the looks, it's about the health. So if you are in Japan and you work for one of the big companies and they see you are obese, then they give you incentives. Okay, just lose your weight, like take care of your health, because then you will be able to work longer with us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they do in Japan. You know, probably if a company told you in the US or in Europe, lose 10 kilograms, they will suit them. But at one point,
well, we have that. Yeah, we have that case. Actually, we're on the books right now with Jordan Peterson, who made a comment about the model on the Sports Illustrated who was obese and said, "Sorry, not pretty." And that was one of the condemnative components within the Canadian government, which is usually or traditionally seen as very progressive, have become almost tyrannical by pulling him into the board and subjecting him, saying, well, yeah, your constitutional rights to free speech were violated. However, because you are a board member of the psychological discipline, we're bringing you in for social media training. And if you don't do this, there's no parameters for what this is, then we're going to pull your license as a psychologist. Now, Peterson has the means to fight that because of his popularity and his influence in the world. But a general scientist or someone who's part of one of these, board certification or communities may not have the resources or the wherewithal or the courage to be able to take on a dictate that's coming from the government around something like that. So what's acceptable socially in Japan is threatening the career of maybe Canada's most influential person.
So I think that there is a big distinction, like difference. The thing is, it's not about being pretty; it's about being healthy. So,
right, but that's been distorted here in the United States, and they call fat shaming, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. But if people, I would tell an obese person, hey, just lose 20 kilos to live longer. You lose 20 kilos, you keep shape, you exercise, and you get 10 years more. That's a fact. So I wouldn't tell an obese person, hey, you look ugly, because this is bad. This is fat shaming. Mm-hmm. But still, I think this is overused, and people are just afraid to tell people to lose weight because then it will be called fat shaming, and that's a problem. Like when I see, I was in US, in Colorado, I went to one of the malls, and I think it was Victoria's Secret window, and that was an XXXX model.
Yes.
And I was terrified. And she was pretty, okay. But the problem is that it was showing to the little girls going in the mall that this is okay.
Correct.
This is not okay.
Right. And all the science
unhealthy.
is indicating that that's not okay, from health risk, quality of life, metabolic disease, ability to procreate. Incidence of virtually every single disease is accelerated by obesity, which over half of the population of the United States is inside. It would be qualified under that. And we've seen longevity in the United States on the decline now, and radically, specifically after the COVID pandemic institution of government, regulations and oversight, and I would say coercion, with disseminating voices being taken out of the internet by these AI technologies, largely in part, which is interesting, which is so twisted. So AI was actually essentially deployed against some of the most preeminent scientific persons in the world who were cut out of it because they didn't fit the political narrative, which is saying that, hey, you got to take this gene therapy that we don't know the outcome to a pandemic that was started through our own funding, and then it's okay to be socially shamed. And we know all the concepts of the depression rates and suicide rates, life expectancy rates have all said that the government's got this whole thing wrong radically, whether they were well-intentioned or not. The results are the facts. As a scientist, the facts are the facts. Life expectancy dropped. This was funded from obtuse, illegal funding that was obfuscated, that was funded essentially by U.S. taxpayers, produced in China. We got a virus that went around the world. There was a consequence of that. And then the remedy may have even been worse than the actual condition that was started in the first place. And then we had the social destruction, but all of that leads to, and an AI was used as an institution to deploy it against exactly what you're saying that AI is going to accelerate. So do you think that the what's happened historically in the last few years is going to be positive for the AI super longevity, or do you think it's going to be negative inside of that?
Like, first of all, I think that, like, I'm on the optimistic side of the use of the vaccines, and I think that they saved us from the disease that was there. So I want to state that. And for me, the best thing from the vaccines was this mRNA technology that was tested and then can cure us.
So on that, what do you think of Dr. Malone, who was essentially the person credited with developing the technology that was then used in that, who said that he believed that it was never intended to be used in a vaccination situation because of the potential, the unintended side effects. And then now we have doctors like Dr. John, and he's been campaigning. Of course, they created the 15,000 doctors against that, the Great Barrington Declaration. He was canceled. We have, we have major doctors who, like Dr. McCullough, the most publicized researcher in all of virology that is obtusely against this whole concept. We have Dr. John Campbell, who is showing the all-causes mortality and the uptick that is way out of proportion relative to the condition. So those narratives are counter to what you're saying. Do you feel that, like, how does the individual who's not scientific, who doesn't have the background, who is sitting here trying to make a decision? I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I'm like, how does the individual make that decision? And also because, there are genetic effects. So if you look at the distinct side effect, unintended side effects to the vaccination, there is a genetic factor to this. So certain certain cultures or certain aspects didn't get nearly affected as other people. And that has massive consequences in how we select for both longevity, or if in fact weapons are used against groups, individuals, or nationalities because of the superiority factor.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not big on the research on vaccines. I just based on the opinions and knowledge from the scientists I meet, and like practically all of them, all the longevity scientists are very pro this mRNA mechanism, which is amazing, and that can actually help in our longevity. So one thing, if I can approach your question, is that like now we look from a micro perspective, and we have to look from a 10-year, 20-year perspective, and what are the long-term effects. And also, of course, like we need time to test everything. So of course, these vaccines for COVID, they didn't have 10 years to test like they had in other times. So that's why we even more need these biological models of humans, and then we will be able to test everything not within 10 years, but within 10 days. So I think that overall, as we look at the long-term perspective, this is going in an amazing direction. So, and we need a holistic approach. As you said, like one therapy will not solve everything. Like even as we were talking to all these scientists, they were saying, okay, like my specialization is just one part of that. You need, I don't know, genetic therapy, you need 3D bioprinting, you need just health optimization, you need a purpose, then you need this and that and that and that. It will not be just one treatment, one magic pill that will give us another 200 years. This will be the whole system of how to optimize ourselves. So there is still a long way ahead of us, but it's going forward and it's going faster and faster. So, I will not go into politics and like who's right, who's not. As I mentioned at the beginning, the conscious leadership is the biggest problem. So the technology will be there. Whether in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, we will get to this longevity, escape velocity, and death will become optional at one point. But the problem is that everything we do, all the science we do, we need to use for the good and not for the bad.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there is a lot of people who have their economical reasons. Like you mentioned, pharmaceutical companies, like that's a huge problem because they have the biggest money. If they decided to invest in longevity, poor, everything would speed up so much. But now they have a problem because if they invest in longevity, people will not get sick. And if they don't get sick, they don't need their pharmaceuticals. So that's the biggest problem. And that's why we need a challenger to step into this longevity industry, and then pharmaceutical companies will not have a choice, and then they will have to invest. Actually, just to finish my thought, on our quest as we travel, I also want to talk to some representatives of pharmaceutical companies and ask them about their approach on longevity, and I'm very curious about the answers.
Well, it would seem to me, based on, if you go back to Professor Oshansky's model on the New England Journal of Medicine during the Bush administration, Bush Sr., that was around 2003, they had demonstrated at that time, and he was curtailed by the Bush administration on releasing his stuff, because he said that the disability adjusted life expectancy in the United States was now at 60 years old, where they spent approximately the last 25% of your life going to 80 in a compromised dependent state. In other words, that you were going to require continuous medications and medical intervention until you died, so that your extended life had certainly hit the 80 from maybe 60 years before, when it was mid 60s. So technology improved to maybe 20% improvement. And then we had him also suggesting, though, unfortunately, though, that the trend was going down. And he said it was the first time in U.S. history where the grandkids were going to live longer than or going to live shorter, based on his models. Now, at that time, AI development and technology wasn't as pervasive or understood or even possible. So he was basing his conclusions based on that outcome. What we do know in the last few years is that the adjusted life expectancies in countries like Canada, from which I'm from, and in the United States, from which I live, the life expectancy has dropped dramatically in those countries. And those countries have the strongest pharmaceutical influence, which, when you have a big business like that, regulation is one of the ways that people implement or maintain market share or discourage other people. We've seen it in the energy we've seen it in the energy world. We've seen it in pharmaceuticals. We see it in the military industrial complex. We see the large international conglomerates who have access to some of the best minds in the world, who are leveraging it not for the benevolence of humanity, but more in order to maintain the viability of their market, or to be not be eliminated through technological innovation. And this has been going on for some time. The Tesla and free energy components and JP Morgan and all that was, whether that's true or not, we don't know, but there's some aspects of that.
Just to interrupt for a second, like we have this example of Kodak, who was big in photography, and they actually invented digital photography.
Yes.
They didn't make it to the market, but it went out, and then it killed their business. So I'm sure that pharmaceutical companies are for sure afraid about that. But for our, thanks God, there are these billionaires around the world, and they all want to live longer. So they invest in longevity. So now you have Jeff Bezos investing $2 billion. Then you have, owners of Google investing billions in longevity. So I'm keeping fingers crossed for them, and I hope that they invest even more. If I was a billionaire, I would invest 95% of my wealth into longevity growth, because I'd like that for me, for my children, for my friends, for everyone. So at one point, I hope that these pharmaceutical companies will have to change the models and start investing in something else. But the world has to change, and we need our longevity.
Well, I would say that Buckminster Fuller had the answers a long time ago. It's a better use of your energy, instead of fighting the current system that is in place, is to create a system so much better than the current one that the old one falls away. And it sounds like you're in that camp.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm in that camp. I believe in that camp, but I would say I'm short-term pessimistic, long-term optimistic, and I'm basing that pessimism based on human history and recent events, on the oppression of dissenting voices. Because I think science, to me, what science is never settled. It's a working model based on the information that you have, that you're always trying to disprove in light of new information. And when we have public officials coming out saying, I am the science, or the science has been settled, then that is a dangerous overtone that is not reflective of true science, and therefore is serving some special interest group, either public or private or in a government regulation. So I'm nobody's fool. And I am pessimistic about some of these short-term things, and I do believe that there'll be a lot of unrest around this. And I do believe that these longevity technologies, as you're advocating, will be developed and brought forth. Anyways, this has been an awesome discussion. I can't wait to find out more. I mean, this is great, because we dive into a lot of areas that I really think about, and you're obviously on the bleeding edge of this whole thing. Where can people find out more information about you, what you're doing, pick up this longevity map? I think this is a game changer, because I think what's really beautiful about what you said is you've taken your work, your research and stuff, and you've provided a map for people to kind of go by if longevity is their goal. And I cannot share with people enough about getting true, what I call blueprinting concept about approaching something as radical longevity. There's so many things that you could do that's a waste of time, energy, and money. You've obviously calibrated those. So for the people that it kind of shows that you're true to your word, you're true to your optimistic, you're providing this on your own dime, on your own service, on your own research. So thank you for that. Where can people find out more about you and this and follow this? I want to follow you and get the latest and greatest as you travel around the world and show us how we're going to live for hundreds of years. I think it's exciting.
Yeah. So first of all, just wait for our movie, Beyond Time, that we are doing on our way with my son. So some parts we just shooting by ourselves. We travel with 3 cameras, GoPro, and a big drone.
Love it.
And from time to time, also our team is joining us at the conferences, so we can do more and more interviews with top scientists. So it's going to be a blast. We cannot share publicly the trailer yet, because it has to be the media platforms that will do that, but we will share it soon. So far, you can just follow us on Instagram, Longevity Advocate. And as I said, if you DM us with map, then you will get the map straight away. And also like the basics of longevity, I put on the blog, longevityadvocate.com. So everything is longevity advocate. So it's easy to remember. And I would just say like one positive thing at the end, which is a bit off the course. Do you know the story about the pail? Okay, the pail. So actually,
No.
in the ancient times, in the times of Roman Empire, they were, conquering more and more lands. And at one point they got to Britain and they only conquered half of Britain. And then they built a wall in the middle. And then they said, okay, this is the civilization. Behind the wall, this is wilderness. And you just go there, you get killed. It's a bad place.
Hadrian's Wall, I believe that is.
Yes. And then still, some people were crossing and they were never coming back. But they were not coming back because it was bad or because they died. They just went to a better world. And then they thrived there and not being oppressed by the Romans. And then through the centuries, we had these pails all the time. We still have them, the pail of religion. Don't do that. You're going to be a devil. Or, pail of society. Don't do that because you'll be a whore. And so on and so on. Of course, there was a pale of science. You cannot cross these because this is unimaginable. But still, fortunately, we were crossing these pales as societies for centuries and going forward. And I feel like the last 20 years were not only very important for the growth of science and crossing all the pales of science possible, but also crossing the pale of our personal development. Like people really started growing. And I have a lot of friends who go on retreats and not just to take care of their mindset, but just to grow as humans. And then there is all these psychedelics who are not overused like in the 60s where people are going nuts. But in small doses, using psychedelics is amazing for our minds and for our growth. And actually, I believe that people get better. So I think we are crossing these pales, we're going beyond them, and that soon we will not only get to radical longevity, but finally we will somehow unite and get conscious leadership that will just get us to a good direction. And one of the things that is very important is the change of media approach, because we were mentioning that like now in the media, there is only bad news. People don't get good news because it's not clicking. And people need to get hope that it's not a doomsday coming, that there is hope for us as a species, and just stimulate that. So I'm keeping fingers crossed for us, for the media, and I think that our movie Beyond Time will be one of the breaks to the good road for longevity and for us as a society.
Thank you, Marek. I do believe that we are on the cusp of some extraordinary things, and I'm glad there are optimists within the scientific community that is counteracting some of the negative narratives. Wish you the best in your work, and I'm certainly going to be closely following. Hopefully we'll get you back with some new breakthroughs. I encourage everybody to go to the website. All of the links are in the show notes today. I'm AT Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. I hope you love this one, and thank you so much for joining us. And if you like it, share it with someone. If you have some comments, let us know. And again, we will see you on the next episode.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip: how to get away with eating sugar. Hey, look, sugar is normally one of the worst things for you. But let's be honest. I mean, we all cheat from time to time. And here's a little trick that will ensure your body benefits from the sugar. Now, before you eat or drink anything sweet, take 5 to 8 capsules of P3OM. The patented strain in the formula devours sugar so fast it literally doubles in the body every 20 minutes in the presence of sugar. That doesn't mean that you can or you should eat a bunch of sugar or sit around all day doing that. But on the days that you do cheat, or you go after one of those maybe meals that you wouldn't normally do, this ensures that you get something in your gut that eats the sugar. And it's not going to feed the bad guys or spike your blood glucose nearly as much. So to learn more about P3OM and its sugar-devouring and protein-digesting properties and how it can transform your gut and metabolism, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.